Senator Hollie Hughes is here, future Senator. Anything is possible for her. Kristen Abram, of course, the Libertarian, join us now. Ladies, lovely to see you. So, Hollie, let's get into the he said, they said, China didn't say, Albo didn't get it right, of these naval ships, right? So, Albo told us that originally all of this, that New Zealand was the first to pick it up. Not true. It, of course, was the Virgin flight flying over the top. Then there was quite a significant delay in further information. Now Richard Marles is turning around saying, well, we don't really know if there actually was live fire, and it's unhelpful to have the conversation. All right, Australia is part of the Five Eyes organisations, which means we share the collective intelligence powers of Australia, New Zealand, the United States, United Kingdom, right, among others. We're part of the Quad. I'm pretty sure that the technology exists these days to be able to work out if a Chinese warship was trying to shoot something, Hollie.
Isn't it just extraordinary that we honestly seem to have a Prime Minister who is more interested in pandering to China, in defending the actions of these naval ships, and as the Defence Force have said, they don't know, there could be a nuclear submarine there as well. And the Prime Minister has the audacity to mislead the Australian people. If he didn't know, if he had the information incorrect, he needs to fess up. But if he has lied to the Australian people, it is so unacceptable in so many ways. But the fact that it is dealing with live fire that was incredibly close to the Australian coastline, and we had 49 flights needed to be diverted. 49 flights. Now, if you imagine, and horribly so, if one of those commercial flights had been hit, would the Prime Minister still be pandering to China like he is? I mean, I fear he probably might be. It's extraordinary, but it is just evidence again that this man is not up to leading our country, and he's putting all of us at risk due to his inability to manage national security.
Yeah, this is what the Deputy Prime Minister and Defence Minister Richard Marles had to say.
The Prime Minister made clear that there was a notification from the Chinese, but in the same breath made clear that that notification was inadequate.
See, Kristen, here's the deal, right? I can't stand the people who want to pretend that China and its military, just like every other government around the world, right? We know what their long march is, we know what their aspiration is. Not because it's a fever dream in right-wing people's heads, but it's because it's what they have said, all right? So clearly we live in this scenario where trade is going on, but a deep distrust of them militarily needs to be paid attention to. And I don't understand the collective brain that results in a scenario where, frankly, potentially, if it wasn't for the Virgin pilot flying somewhere in and around it and able to notice, we wouldn't know. And we have seen this too many times when it comes to China, that the default setting of the government is to try to shove it out at 5 minutes to midnight. Instead, they get caught because there are people willing to report the news.
Absolutely. I think we're focusing on the wrong thing, Paul. Did Anthony Albanese lie? I don't really think that that's the problem here. When I heard this story this morning, I thought I should call my mum and tell her to start stockpiling, because where is the country going? And I personally think that the coalition have a lot to answer for as well. We're focusing on Anthony Albanese lying to the Australian people. He probably did, who knows? But what would they do if they were in power? How would we be safer under them in power? How would they have known about this sooner than the Labor Party in government knowing about this? We are in a extremely difficult period in global economics and global friendliness from China and other countries. Don't we think that this is extremely important to know how the coalition would actually do a better job at this? So I think that they're both wrong. I think that Anthony Albanese should have done better for our country and the safety, and I think that the coalition should too.
Well, I tell you what, certainly when it comes to Andrew Hastie as Shadow Defence Minister, I'm more than happy to give him the time to explain how the country would be safer under alternative government. In fact, we've got some ideas about that heading into the election. Hollie, I want to talk about the dirt unit stuff, right? Oh, the Prime Minister's people, nothing to do with the story from 2009, but somehow they were across it multiple days before it came out about a story that theoretically they would not need to be informed of. Look, again, is there a story there? Well, there are plenty of people who have said that there is, and that's fine. You put them out, see what happens. But is there a, pause the horses moment? Is this the, the great change to the polls? No. It's just about, frankly, trying to change the subject, yet again, from the performance of the government. But what do you think about the, Prime Minister's office and when they knew and why they were tipped off at all?
Well, it just shows Albanese being tricky again, and well done Andrew Charlton last night for being honest and acknowledging that he had known about this story for, I think he said, it could have been more than 7 days. So they had obviously been sitting on it for a while, and the fact the Prime Minister was sending out his lackeys to spread this story while saying, I've got nothing to do with it, I am not going to say anything, like butter wouldn't melt in his mouth, which has now been proven to be another time he has misled the Australian people. This guy cannot be trusted. Every time he opens his mouth, what he says is proven to be incorrect, misleading, untrue. It's just, but I do think the dirt unit, I do think this story, I think it's indicative that this is the type of campaign that we're going to see. It's going to be personal, it's going to be grubby. This is not a government that's got a good story to tell of what it's achieved over the last 3 years. In fact, they don't want to talk about the last 3 years because they know every single Australian has experienced a dip in their cost of, the way that their living standards are. They're paying more, the mortgage, the groceries, the insurance, absolutely everywhere they turn around. And they don't have a good story to tell during the election campaign, so it'll just be personal attacks and smears. And I think Australians deserve better. They deserve to know what each party has as the vision for Australia going forward. And I'm absolutely concerned that this man may be given an opportunity, and even worse so if it's in a minority government, to lead the country for another 3 years.